Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing and Fabric has what you need for your creative adventure. If it's sewing, embroidery, or vinyl projects you need for a home business, Etsy, Pinterest, and your family, we have it. Mid-South Sewing sells Brothers Sewing and Embroidery machines and the latest scan and cut crafting machine. Mid-South Sewing and Fabric in the Gallery Shopping Center.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by The Flower Pot. For over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. KnoxvilleFlowerPot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Coming up on this edition of Tennessee Life, we go inside some of the volunteer state's oldest homes, log cabins. This historic building was mere weeks away from being torn down and forgotten, but now the original home of the founder of Maryville College has a new lease on life at the Great Smoky Mountain Heritage Center in Townsend.
It was about to be condemned by the city, possibly it had been condemned, and it got to the point where Maryville College was notified that if something did not happen with this cabin in the next 6 weeks, then it would be torn down and moved. The first thought that I had was, we've got to save this cabin.
At Frey Sawmill in Teleco Plains, they cut logs the same way they have since opening in the 1950s, with an old-style circular saw.
Most of the modern mills have went to bandsaw mill, which is thin curve, but we stayed with the circular sawmill, which is reminiscent of traditional methods. And with the circular sawmill, you have the marks and the markings that a lot of people like to see in their homes if they're wanting to have a rustic type of home. And so it's helped us to have a little niche there also.
We found an Anderson County woman who loves log cabins so much she has a collection of them, and one cabin even has an historic family connection.
Today we have 6 cabins. 2 is still not finished. Well, these were the earliest dwellings that were built, and there's not many of them left, and I just want to preserve what I can to make sure they stay for as long as they can.
Those stories next on Tennessee Life.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Tennessee Life. I'm Vicki Lawson. Plenty of Tennessee's early homesteads were log cabins, and although most have been torn down, there is currently an effort to save and showcase this state's early structures. We start with the home of the man who founded Maryville College. Issac Anderson's cabin was built in 1802 and came very close to being demolished. Today it's being restored in Townsend at the Smoky Mountain Heritage Center.
The first thought that I had was, we've got to save this cabin. It was sitting in East Knoxville. It had been vacant for a number of years. Actually, it was sitting in the back of a subdivision. It was sitting back in the woods. It really was becoming a health hazard. It was about to be condemned by the city. It got to the point where Maryville College was notified that if something did not happen with this cabin in the next 6 weeks, then it would be torn down and moved. And that's kind of when I got involved. I thought, well, something has to happen. So that's when I made phone calls to people and got the wheels started. To me, it would be unconscionable if alumnus of Maryville College knew that we could save a cabin, but because of inaction, the cabin was just torn down and hauled away. And so future generations would, I think, probably would not forgive us to know that we had the chance to save this cabin, but because of inaction, we just didn't. I'm Cole Piper. I am a past board member of the Great Smoky Mountain Heritage Center and an alumnus of Maryville College. We are sitting on the second floor of the Issac Anderson cabin. Issac Anderson was the founder and first president of Maryville College. Well, Issac was born in Virginia, and as a young boy I guess he was around 21 or 22 years old. His father relocated the family to at what is today East Knoxville, and built this cabin in 1802. And at the time, Isaac was very much into education. He had on the property what came to be known as Isaac's log cabin, where he actually taught students who wanted additional education. And also he was very much interested in religion. He was ordained as a Presbyterian minister and was involved early on in the founding of Second Presbyterian Church in Knoxville. In 1819, it was called the Southern and Western Theological Seminary. It became known as Maryville College in 1842 when it was chartered under that name. Maryville College has a rich history of opening its doors to everyone. The first woman to get an undergraduate degree in the state of Tennessee is a Maryville College graduate. One of the very first African Americans to get a degree is a Maryville College graduate. There were, in the early days, Cherokee Indians that attended Maryville College. So throughout his whole life, Issac Anderson understood the significance and importance of education. What a great way to honor his memory is to have his cabin reconstructed in a place that is honoring the heritage of the Great Smoky Mountains. The cabin was built in 1802, but obviously time had really caused it to deteriorate to great degree. And in fact, it got to the point where the Knox Heritage Foundation had it on what they called the Fragile 15. And for a number of years, they had been trying to get someone to take the cabin, to rehabilitate it, to move it, to do something rather than have it torn down. So I made a couple phone calls, and Bob Patterson, who is the executive director at the Heritage Center, graciously said, you know, if you can make this happen, then not only will we take the cabin, but we'll put it at a prominent location right at the front of the Heritage Center. I would say if action had not been taken within 6 weeks, then the idea of having a log cabin with Issac Anderson's name on it would have just been a distant memory. What is unique about this cabin is that it has a second floor. Most of the cabins built of that time period were just a single floor cabin, but Isaac's family and his father had the wherewithal to build his 2-story log cabin. And so that's one of the unique factors of it. Obviously, the cabin, like all the cabins of those times, had a very substantial fireplace, which was really their only source of heat. Another unique aspect of this cabin is that the windows were glass. Once we had made the determination, yes, we could save this cabin, and they started to take it down, realized that about 30% of the logs were so rotted that we could not relocate the logs. It was really a massive undertaking, because when you take the cabin apart, each part had to be photographed, numbered, and then brought up here and reassembled. Kind of, if you think of putting a Lego set together, it's putting these different pieces together. Hauled them from East Knoxville up here, then laid them out, put a tarp over them, and all of the brickwork and stonework that we were able to save was also brought up here. And I can remember coming up and looking and seeing and thinking, well, this is Issac Anderson's cabin, but if we're not able to raise about $150,000, then this is going to be Issac Anderson's cabin laying on the ground under a tarp. There were many people who understood the importance of the historical significance of saving Issac Anderson's cabin. We obviously had several larger donors who gave a substantial amount to get us started. And then we went out and appealed to people in the community, both people who understood and appreciated the historical significance of Issac Anderson's cabin. Second Presbyterian Church stepped up in a big way and gave money. And then, of course, Maryville College alumni supported this effort in a big way. So we're sitting today in the cabin, which is about 95% complete. The last real part that needs to be completed is the fireplace. We were fortunate enough to be able to save almost all of the original stone that was on the fireplace, and there is a stonemason as we speak putting the final touches on that. The one significant thing you will see when completed is that for some reason, when the Andersons built this cabin, they took the stone up so far and then they finished the top with brick. So you won't see a complete stone fireplace. You'll see about 3/4 stone, and then the last part is brick. The timing of the reconstruction of this cabin is significant because Maryville College is getting ready to start the bicentennial celebration of the founding of Maryville College. The ribbon cutting of the cabin will be the kickoff for the bicentennial celebration. I know that we're going to be able to tell the story of early education in Blount County, the story of Maryville College, the story of religion in Blount County, and especially the founding of Second Presbyterian Church. The thing that's so nice about this is that it's right close to the entrance of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, with hundreds of thousands of visitors passing through here. They're going to have the opportunity to stop at the Great Smoky Mountain Heritage Center and go through a very historical cabin. What you're looking at when you think about fitting into our Tennessee history is that there aren't many of them left. And so what this does is it preserves and it lets this generation know what it was like for previous generations. And I think from the hard life that they had, long term, I think the real sense of satisfaction is going to be that there's going to be people, a new generation of young students coming here, and they're going to be introduced to Issac Anderson and who he was and how important he was to the history of East Tennessee.
Later on Tennessee Life, how one Anderson County woman discovered her family cabin had a historic past from before the Civil War. But next, we go inside a traditional Tennessee sawmill where they cut logs the old-fashioned way.
If you've ever wanted a log cabin for yourself, a family-run sawmill in Monroe County is one of the few places in the country that can make that happen. Frey's sawmill started in 1953 and today still cuts lumber the old-fashioned way.
To get an idea of what goes in and out, we bring in 100 tons of wood and we send out 100 tons of wood each day in one form or fashion. Most of the modern mills have went to bandsaw mill, which is thin curve, but we stayed with the circular sawmill, which is reminiscent of traditional methods. And with the circular sawmill, you have the marks and the markings that a lot of people like to see in their homes if they're wanting to have a rustic type of home. And so it's helped us to have a little niche there also. Frey Sawmill is located in Coker Creek, and we still get logs from about a 50-mile radius of this area. The sawmill got started when my dad started one in 1953. He used to cut timber for different mills, and then he had a friend of his talked him into buying a sawmill. And so he did, and that started everything. Since then, as we were born, we just rode up into the sawmill. Spent all our time, our extra time here, and that's just always been a way of life for us. Using the circular sawmill is more traditional, and you have some things that you lose by doing that. You don't have the efficiency of a bandsaw mill, so that means you're going to be producing more wood waste. But we've been very fortunate as far as the wood waste. We're close to 99% of everything that we're taking out of the log is being used in one manner or the other. So really wood waste, it ceased to become an issue. So that provided us the emphasis to keep on producing and using the circular saw, and so it's worked out very well for us. Today we'll be delivering to Robbinsville, North Carolina. We took one delivery south of Cleveland already. That's went to a chicken farm, and done took one to Maryville College to help heat the campus at Maryville College. We'll take them to chips, and they'll take the chips and put in their boiler up there, and that heats the water. And then, of course, the water goes into steam, and that heats the campus at Maryville College. It saves so much off of the gas they would be using, the petroleum use, and I understand it's 1/3 the cost of what it would be to them if they were using the straight gas. We deal in hardwoods and softwoods. We have a lot of business that we do in the white pine market. White pine are used in the log home industry. We'll cut beams and cants and, of course, the logs for the log home building. The log home got started back in the 1990s. We're getting do-it-yourselfers that are getting interested in building their own log home. A lot of people will let someone who is more knowledgeable about it build it, and then they will go in and finish it themselves to try to save some money. And yes, we have seen a lot of interest in it. Well, I love making things, and there is something that is just well worth of a day to make things. We've been able to get some people into some log homes that couldn't do it, and we showed them some ways that they could do it, and that means a lot. We've made a lot of good friends, and it's great to meet with these people. I was in Cleveland not too long ago and went into a Tractor Supply there, and I was just bombarded with the different people who've been our customers through the years. I don't know, it must have been a special day or something at Tractor Supply, but it seems like everybody in the area happened to be coming by, and it was great just to meet with them. How's your home? How's it going? And so we make friends, and there's no price on that. People come in and they'll, there's songs written about my Tennessee log home, and so there is a history with that. And when we talk about any of our ancestors, if we talk about their dwelling, we're going to go straight to the log home topic. And then we'll start talking about some of the methods they use, and we'll start talking about the dovetailing the corners, and then we'll talk about hewing, and then we start adding all these components. These are components that were devised 200 years ago. And so we talk about doing that now, and I really like that. That's kind of neat to realize that there was so much ingenuity that long ago and that we're still using it now. We all have to be certified. I have the certification myself too. We have to keep this updated. It's a master logger program in the state of Tennessee. We all have to abide by the Sustainable Forest Initiatives. And so that means we have to take a lot of thought into what we're doing. We are checked on all the properties. All of the private properties are under state guidelines in the state of Tennessee, so we are checked by the state whenever we're on any private property to make sure we're following all those guidelines. They will make sure that we're doing the logging technique properly and that we're doing everything that we're supposed to do to take care of the environment. Make sure you're not getting close to streams. Make sure that you're taking care of the wildlife by resowing the logging roads and just doing good management. We do some things. We get some calls for someone wanting like a hickory mantle cut out of a 6-inch, 6x12, and they'll want the bark left on one side, and they'll want it circular sawn cut, and we'll do some stuff like that. And it's not huge projects, but we'll do them individually, and we have a few of those projects spread all over. I love it. We really appreciate being able to do that, and we appreciate being able to go to people's homes and say, well, we couldn't find this anywhere else, and we were able to find it at your place, and to be able to provide that for some people that you did things that they couldn't find anywhere, and there's a little bit of gratification in doing that.
For a woman in Anderson County, her love for log cabins stretches across acres. In fact, Libby Bumgardner has a collection of 6 of them. The one that her grandparents had lived in was always special to her. But then she discovered something tucked away in a box. It turns out her family cabin is also historic.
Can't you find something smaller to collect? Especially my sons, you know. My mom collects cabins. My name's Libby Bumgardner, and I have a collection of cabins on my property. I've always loved log cabins, and it started with my grandparents' log cabin, which I didn't know was a cabin growing up because it had boards on it. We bought it in 1995. We were just walking around the cabin, and one of the boards was off, and I said, that looks like a log. We pulled a couple more off, and we discovered it is in fact a log. So they left the beds, dishes, churns, lamps, all kinds of stuff in the cabin. It was dusty, and the beds were in there. They were made up, but they were dirty, you know, and dusty. And I found one pair of pants that was hanging on the mantle on a nail. I guess maybe he'd been working outside or something and just hung them on a nail, maybe to dry or something, I don't know. All those years that people's lived around here, and it's just been an old boarded up house. There was one lady referred to it as Anderson County's best kept secret. Nobody knew about it. None of the county officials, nobody. So we just started digging and found out the history. I found out it was built in the late 1700s, maybe 1798 or 99. And it was built by a George Walker for Issac Brazelton. Issac Brazelton only had the property from 1798 until 1803, and he sold it to David Hall. David Hall was a Revolutionary War soldier. He fought at Kings Mountain. He was an Indian spy, and he brought his family here and lived here until his death. And he had 12 children total. Today we refer to it as the David Hall cabin. Right after I bought the cabin in 1995, we came up here and found this big wooden box. When I opened the lid, I thought, well, look at all this old books and papers and stuff in here. I guess all the letters from the Arnolds and the Halls and documents and stuff was in that box. And there were hundreds of letters, pictures, postcards, railroad timetables, toys, all kinds of things. Then when I got to looking at them and reading them, I couldn't put them down. I couldn't stop. Yeah, well, since they'd been here all these years and nobody was interested, and then I find them, and oh no, it was so exciting. It was just unbelievable. I found negatives. The photos were all gone. I don't know if the mice ate them or what happened, but we had the negatives developed, and they were of my family. My father and all his siblings were born and raised in this cabin, and there was 11 children born to my grandmother in this cabin. Today we have 6 cabins. It started with one, which belonged to my grandparents, which is this one, and we bought another one to replace the one that used to be here that my grandfather had torn away because it was in bad shape. Then we purchased this one in Campbell County. While we were taking it down, we found another one. We took it down, brought it here, re-chinked everything. I pressure washed the whole cabin and started putting my grandparents' furniture and dishes and things on display and inviting people to come visit. That's how it got started. And we have people come visit almost on a daily basis. My husband or I come out and give them a tour of the cabins. Well, I hope to get them all restored and all the fireplaces put back on, and porches, and just be able to maintain them. And there's not many of them left, and I just want to preserve what I can to make sure they stay for as long as they can. Well, this is too important not to share. It is. I like to share history. We open to the public. We have butter churners come, soap makers, long hunters camp. They shoot the black powder guns. They do target practice with tomahawks. There's a tinsmith that comes. We all dress in period dress, and I just walk around and visit with the people and explain things to them. So it's been an adventure. It's a real labor of love. I'll get out here by myself and walk around and through the cabins, and it's like you can feel their presence. I'm sure that's just me, but it's just like they're there, you know, their spirit or whatever.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring the history behind some of these volunteer state log cabins. I'm Vicki Lawson. See you on the next Tennessee Life.
Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing and Fabric has what you need for your creative adventure. If it's sewing, embroidery, or vinyl projects you need for a home business, Etsy, Pinterest, and your family, we have it. Mid-South Sewing sells Brothers Sewing and Embroidery machines and the latest scan and cut crafting machine. Mid-South Sewing and Fabric in the Gallery Shopping Center.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by The Flower Pot. For over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. KnoxvilleFlowerPot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you.